Okay, for this unit, the power button is down here at the bottom. You see it'll boot up. It'll tell you what its name is. Okay. You can see it's very dark when it first comes on. I'm going to slide this forward. You don't need to see the power button anymore. This one, the way we do it right now, there's these two cursor buttons. So if I do cursor down, you can see there's a little, you might be able to just start to see a little caret going up and down. But I'm going to take it to the very last setting, which is LCD adjust. And I'm going to turn the backlight on. Okay. Let me go a little bit closer. Hopefully you can see something. Okay, so we've got our backlight on. Not a great picture, but it'll kind of give you an idea. It's the best I can do right now. All these different lines are settings you can adjust. So you can see this has a lot more adjustment than the first unit we did. Okay. So again, right now there's a little blinking caret right here. You see that little arrow? That's what these cursor buttons move. So if I go down and go here, and actually go up.
Can you move this part out by saying? You work dark?
Yeah, I can try to give you a second. For the show. Okay. So hopefully that'll improve it a little bit. So right now the caret is gone. I've made it disappear. If I go down, you see it's on the top line there, little caret. Make it go away. When it's away, this lower set of things right here changes. Each time I move the caret, you'll see that change down there. That's your different options. Okay. So when the caret's not there at all, it gives me the kind of the screen setup. So I can turn the menu off and make the screen a little bigger. I can turn the menu on to make adjustments. Okay. I can redraw the screen, basically like a screen reset. And then I have the ability to lock and unlock setups. Again, I wouldn't recommend using the setups. You're going to have to tweak them and play with them because students change them, save them, lock them, unlock them. I don't have a way to keep students from unlocking them, locking them. It's really just you go to the screen, unlock them, lock them. So none of those settings are going to necessarily be guaranteed to work like they're supposed to. So if I go down, this first line says, you'll just have to imagine me moving buttons up and down. This first line says ECT F1 test. So again, this can be a multi-frequency unit, but we're only going to run single frequency. Okay. So we're on frequency 1. If we do up and down, that's our test mode. Now you can see it says COND, C-O-N-D. That's conductivity testing. Okay. So if you put it in conductivity testing, you probably won't recognize most of the parameters. You can see everything down below has changed. So make sure it's in eddy current test mode. You can select, again, it can be a multi-frequency. You can select frequency 1 or 2. Okay. And then you can turn frequency 2 on and off. So right now, we're just going to leave frequency 2 off. At the top, it says to start a new setup. So I've made changes whenever there's a setup selected, which there always is. Now I've made changes to it. It's just trying to tell you, hey, you've made changes. So to be able to continue making changes, I have to hit clear or balance. So I'm just going to clear right now. Now I can go to setup. This is where I can store or recall setups. And again, I don't guarantee that any of these setups are going to be good. So it really doesn't matter what it says there. You don't even have to record the setup. So right now it says setup 25, and right below it says reset. This is the setup I've stored to reset the unit. Okay? Kind of zeroes everything out. You don't have to, in lab reports, you don't have to put that you use setup 25 and record, because if you look next to it, it says mod in black. That tells you it's been modified. It's not actually setup 25 that's on there right now. Something's been changed about it. Okay? So you don't need to really set anything there. Next one down, frequency 1, and it's currently at 200 kilohertz. And these lower parts, if I go up and down, it goes up and down by 1%. If I do left and right, it multiplies it by 10. Okay? So like if I go left, you can see it goes down to 20 kilohertz, goes up to 200, or it goes up and down by 10. I'm going to put it back at that 100 kilohertz like I did for the other tester. Okay, for the surface crack example, oftentimes you run it about 100 kilohertz. Next, I have to set my probe type. So what type of a probe was this? Anyone remember? Right now it's set to reflection. This first probe we're doing, 1048.2, this is a differential probe. So I can select my probe type by going up and down. So I'm going to change it until, the probe driver up and down, probe type is left and right. So I can do single, single is also an absolute probe. We don't have any of those. I can do DDPU, it's like a dual type probe. It's dual mode, kind of funky. Or differential, right? This is a differential probe, so we're going to stick with that. And then next to that, I can turn my driver up and down. Right now it says 16 there. You'll be able to see where it says 16 next to the F1, 16. If I go up or down, I'm going to start with it about 8. It goes up, it starts at 1, it goes to 2, it goes to 4, it goes to 8, it goes to 16. You know, it does, it kind of doubles each time you go up and down. So again, that's how much power I'm sending to my probe. So if I've got a small probe, you tend to set that higher or lower? Higher? You send more power to it? Lower. So a small probe, you don't need to turn that up as high. A large probe, you're going to send more power to a bigger coil. Okay? So we're going to start it at 8, differential probe. Next is the gain. Remember, this is how sensitive the receiver is, you know, the part that's listening for the signal. Okay? I'm going to leave that where it's at. It's at 20 right now. For my demo, actually my demo, I usually turn it down a little bit. So again, up and down is a difference of 1. You can see 20, 19, 18. Or if I do left and right, it drops by 6. I'm going to put it at 14. Sounds about right. Next, mark clear, number 0. You can put marks and that kind of thing. You probably won't use that one very much. Just leave it kind of 0. There is an auto set feature. So auto set F1 that's designed to try to automatically set screen size and lift up, and set the phase for lift-off indication and all that. It's talked about in the manual. If you want to play with it a little bit, more power to you. But I want you to get familiar with setting this up manually before you try to use AutoSet. You got to understand what AutoSet is doing before you use it. And so by learning to set it up manually, you'll kind of understand the process AutoSet is going through. Okay. Next one, it says display 1. You can actually do a dual display. Okay, it's display 1, F1, and then if you're doing a second frequency, it would bounce between display 1 and 2. You can just leave it set as display 1. So display 1 source F1, that's what we want to leave it as. Mode, again, remember the other one, we could sweep it or do other stuff. So you can see if I do up and down, it does, there's trigger sweep, D1 off. We want XY. Okay, so keep it as XY. Here's my vertical and horizontal scale. I'll change those once I start looking at how things are working. My phase, again, the rotation, we'll play with that once we get a liftoff going. Position, this sets where my little cursor is. I think I forgot to show you on the other one because it was already set, but I'll demonstrate that here. Works the same. Filter, works the same way. You can try to filter out extraneous indication due to like wobbling and stuff. The one that you might want to try playing with the filter on would be the corrosion example. Corrosion's the hardest one to get a good clear signal on. That's where a filter might come in handy. But again, don't get too hung up in it. Screen A and B, I said you can do 2 screens. You can do a screen A, B, flopping between them, all that. That's where I turn on. Right now, we're just going to stick with screen A on. I wouldn't turn B on or anything like that. It can get really confusing when it starts jumping between different screens and stuff like that. Okay. Next is alarm source. So again, you can have 2 different frequencies. We're not going to use the alarm, but you would want it set to the frequency that you're working with, so frequency 1. And then you can see our alarm is off. If you turn the alarm on, you get a couple more options below that to like set where it's going to send an alarm if you do that. Outputs. You can hook a printer up to this. We don't have it. That's to set that kind of thing, so you won't really do anything with that. You can do screenshots. You can store the screen really for your purposes. The easiest way to do it is when the screen is there, take your phone out, snap a picture of it. When you're trying to take pictures of it, sometimes it works better to actually shut the backlight off on the unit, okay? Or shut the room lights off so you don't get it. You can see the screen, they're really prone to glare. If I tip it back at all, or it's kind of hard to get a really good clear shot on here. You can see all the stuff it's reflecting. So sometimes shutting the lights off and then turning the backlight on actually helps to get a really good picture. Next one is ruler. It's off right now. I can turn it on, where you can set like measurements. You see those little, we got some little carrots showing up on the sides. Okay, and that's used as part of the alarm function. And then the LCD adjustment, whether you want, again, you can turn your grid on and off. Oops, I have to shut the ruler off. Ruler off. LCD adjustment, again, I can turn the grid on and off. I can turn my backlight on and off. I can adjust the contrast if it's dim or if it's too dark. Okay. And then we're back to general setup. So as I was going, I set my frequency, I set my differential, my probe type, as well as my driver power. I set my gain. Now I'm going to go over and I'll start setting scales and positions. So just like my other one, I need to take my block. I set my probe on a good surface, a known good area. And then I balance. You can see there's a balance on the left or the right. Typically, you're going to hold the probe in your dominant hand, and then you can hold the tester in your non-dominant hand. That's why they duplicate the buttons, so you can work it from either left or right-handed side. And I'm going to hit my balance button. You can see it says balancing at the top, and then there was a little X that came up. You can see now I'm in a really weird spot, right? I told you want, for these cracks, typically this one, some things you're going to want it in the top right of the screen, or in the center of the screen. Some things you're going to want it lower right. So for this surface crack example, usually we want it in the lower right corner of the screen. Okay? So mine's in the wrong spot altogether. So I'm going to go to position, and then this is where the up, down, left, right arrows basically just work like the snake game or like an Etch-a-Sketch. So I'm going to go down, and you'll see it'll kind of draw a line down, and then I'm going to go to the right. And if I move it around, you'll see kind of where it is. And I'm going to put it somewhere down here in the lower right. And I'm going to balance it again just to see. Okay, and D1 shows where you're at. Now I'm going to check my liftoff. What's up with my liftoff? Which way do I need to move it? Clockwise, counterclockwise. Let's use that terminology. I need to go clockwise. In a 360-degree pattern, is clockwise increasing the degrees or decreasing? Increasing, right? You start at 0, 0, 90, 180, 270, 360, right? So to go clockwise, we want to increase it. So I want to go to phase. There we go, I'm on phase. I can increase it or decrease it by 10 or by 1, depending on if I hit the up and down arrows left and right. I'm going to kind of bounce my probe on and off. And I'm going to increase. Oh, there we go. See, now it's going kind of. If I go another 10, it's too far. So then I can. There we go. Now I'm going kind of left and right. Now, you can see right now my liftoff doesn't even go off the screen. So if that's my liftoff, that's an extreme change. If I go over the cracks, you can see nothing really even comes up. Okay? And that's because their indications right now are so small you can't see it. There's a couple ways we can change that. We can increase driver power. We can increase gain, or we can zoom our screen in to be able to see it, okay? I'm going to do a little of each. First off, I'm going to increase driver power and gain to show you something that'll happen that you got to avoid. So if I go back to my driver, and I increase my driver, see this little black box that came up in the lower right-hand corner? What that says, if I read it, it says amp saturation driver. My speakers are clipping right now. We're sending way too much power. That microphone, that sensor is being overwhelmed, and so my amplifier is being overwhelmed. So if you get that little black box, you can see it goes away. Sometimes it'll come up when I take my probe away from a part. Sometimes it'll come up when my probe's there. But if it's coming on when my probe's on the part, I got way too much power going into the coils, or my gain is set way too high. If it's coming on when it's off, if it's okay when I'm on the metal part, but I remove it and then it comes on, that's okay. That's not a big deal. We want to make sure it's not oversaturated while we're doing our test, while the probe is on the part. So I'm going to set it there. I'm going to turn that gain back down where I had it, that driver down. But I am going to turn my gain up a little bit, and just making sure it doesn't do it. Like I said, if I throw my gain really high, let me see if I can get it to go. It's not doing it. See, driver's much. Yeah, I'm not. There we go. Now it's. You saw it oversaturate there for a second. So if I take my probe off, so it's okay if it doesn't saturate or oversaturate when it's on, but if it does when it's off, that's fine. But I know right now from experience that gain is set way too high. So I'm going to drop that back down a little bit. Let's go to like 20. Okay. Now I got to rebalance everything. Balancing. Well, that's a little better, right? It's bigger. It's still not going off the screen. Maybe I'll turn my gain up a little bit more. Let's balance it. Okay. So I'm comfortable with that. Now I'm going to zoom in on it a little bit. How do I zoom in? What do I need to adjust? What's that? Horizontal, vertical scale. So I'm going to bring my vertical scale down a little bit. Actually, I don't have much to go down on my horizontal scale. Oh, yeah, I do. Sorry, it was at 20. I'm looking at it upside down. I thought it was 2. Let's bring that down to like 10. Okay. I'm going to balance it again. Now, once I've gotten it set up and balanced, I don't have to balance it every time. I can just hit clear. But, okay, there we go. That looks pretty good. My lift-off is going off the side of the screen. Let's see what an edge effect looks like. Okay, it kind of goes up and then off the edge of the screen, right? It's kind of a crack indication. It turns into a thing. I'm going to clear it. I don't need to balance it because I haven't made any changes. Now if I go across, there's 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I've got 3 crack indications, but they're very small. So I would want to continue adjusting things like driver power, gain, amplifier gain, vertical, horizontal scale, and as I tweak those, I may have to adjust the phase a little bit, to a point where my indications fill the majority of the screen. Okay, if you take a picture of this, including your lab report, I'm going to comment back that your indications are too small. They're too close together to really start to judge how big a crack is. Because what we can say is, I'll zoom in, and if we, no, not that much. If your crack indications are that close together, part of what we want to be able to do is say, how big is a crack? We use this as a standard. If we get something that's in the middle, say we go over a crack and it comes up in this area here between these two, right? Well, those are our 2 largest. That would mean it's somewhere between 20 and 40 thousandths deep. Okay, so it lets us do some measurement as well. It's not going to be exact, but it can tell us, okay, maybe it's 25 or 30 thousandths deep if it's between those 2. But if they're too close together or too small, it's going to be really hard to make those judgment calls. So you want those indications to fill the majority of your screen.